Miss Hartley, I'm calling from the Delaware Secretary of State's office regarding a business registration inquiry. The woman's voice was professional, confused, as if she wasn't quite sure why she was making this call. You've been listed as an authorized contact for an LLC registered under the name Sophia Michelle Harrison LLC, incorporated on March 15th of this year. I was sitting in my kitchen on a Friday afternoon, drinking coffee while my 8-year-old daughter Sophia was at school, when the world tilted on its axis in a way I didn't understand yet. Can you confirm that you authorized this business registration and that Miss Sophia Michelle Harrison is the registered member? My daughter is 8 years old, I said slowly, as if saying the words would make the woman understand the absurdity of her question. She's a third grader. She doesn't own a business. The silence that followed was the silence of someone realizing they were about to report something deeply wrong. I'm going to need you to come into our office with documentation proving your daughter's age and your custody status. This registration should not exist. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this story because what happens next will absolutely destroy you. My name is Jessica Hartley. I'm a mother, a teacher, and someone whose trust was weaponized against her family. Let me explain how my in-laws used my 8-year-old daughter's identity to commit fraud. I met David in college. We were both studying business at the University of Virginia. He was charming, ambitious, kind. We dated for 3 years, got married at 26, and I became part of the Hartley family, a family that seemed normal until my mother-in-law, Susan, decided she needed to make a quick fortune. Susan Hartley had never had a real job. She'd been a homemaker her entire life, which wasn't a problem. That was her choice. The problem was that when David's father retired at 65 and their investment income proved insufficient, Susan decided she needed to become a business owner, not through building a company or starting something legitimate, through joining multi-level marketing schemes. MLMs became her obsession. She'd go to seminars, buy starter kits costing hundreds of dollars, and recruit friends into schemes selling everything from skincare to nutritional supplements. She'd lose money consistently. David's father would bail her out. Then she'd do it again. This one is different, she'd tell me at family dinners, her eyes gleaming with the particular madness that only MLM enthusiasm can create. I'm telling you, Jessica, this is the one that's going to work. You should join. I don't want to join an MLM, I'd tell her gently. You're limiting yourself. You should think about financial freedom. What she meant was, you should think about spending thousands of dollars to buy products you'll never sell and recruiting your friends into a system designed to take their money. I declined repeatedly. This bothered her more than I understood at the time. When Sophia was born, Susan became obsessed with her, not in a normal grandmother way, in a way that felt possessive and strange. She'd visit and ask detailed questions about my parenting choices. She'd comment on what Sophia wore, how I was raising her, whether Sophia was developing her brand early. Yes, she said that about a baby. The Kardashians started building their brand as children, Susan would say. If you want Sophia to have opportunities, you need to think about her personal brand. Now, I would smile and change the subject. When Sophia turned 6 and started first grade, Susan brought up the MLM again. What if we set up a business in Sophia's name? When she's older, she'll have already built a customer base. We could sell natural children's products. It would be her inheritance. That's insane, I said bluntly. You can't create a business in a child's name without her parents' explicit consent. And I wouldn't consent to that anyway. You're preventing her from having opportunities, Susan said coldly. That was the last time we had a pleasant conversation. 2 years later, I received the call from the Secretary of State. I hung up after confirming that yes, this LLC registration absolutely should not exist and that I would be coming to their office with all documentation of my custody of my daughter. Then I called David. There's an LLC registered in Sophia's name, I told him. What? That's impossible. The Secretary of State's office just called me about it. Someone registered a business using our daughter's legal name without my permission or yours. David went quiet. Then, it was my mother. The words landed like a punch. What? A few months ago, she mentioned something about setting up a business and asked if she could use Sophia's name. I told her absolutely not. I thought she dropped it. She didn't drop it. She registered an LLC in Delaware using our 8-year-old daughter's identity. That's not legal. No, it's fraud. I drove to the Delaware Secretary of State's office the following Monday. I brought Sophia's birth certificate, our marriage certificate, documentation of my custody, and my government ID. The office representative, a woman named Patricia Coleman, pulled up the file on her computer. "Here's the LLC registration," she said, turning her screen so I could see. "Filed on March 15, 2024. The registered member is listed as Sophia Michelle Harrison. The registered agent is listed as Susan Marie Hartley, and the business purpose is listed as selling nutritional and wellness products." "What kind of nutritional products?" I asked, though I already knew. Patricia pulled up additional documents. According to the filing documents, this appears to be affiliated with an MLM company operating out of Nevada. The company structure shows multiple levels of recruiters, which is consistent with a multi-level marketing organization. I felt sick. Can she do that? Can she legally register an LLC using my daughter's name without consent? Absolutely not. To register a business entity under a minor's name, you require parental or guardian written consent. If the consent form was forged or if no consent was obtained, this registration is fraudulent. Additionally, if funds are being moved through this LLC in the minor's name, that's potential identity theft and wire fraud. Funds are being moved. Patricia's expression shifted. She typed on her keyboard and pulled up another document. According to the Delaware State Record System, this LLC has received deposits from multiple sources in the amount of approximately $4,800 over the past 3 months. The funds are currently sitting in an account, $4,800 in my 8-year-old daughter's name without my knowledge or permission. Who authorized these deposits? I asked. According to the account holder information, the authorized signatory is Susan Marie Hartley. My mother-in-law had created a fraudulent business using my daughter's identity and was moving money through an account in my child's name. I contacted a criminal attorney that afternoon. Her name was Margaret Wu, and when I explained the situation, her response was immediate and serious. "This is identity theft," she said flatly. "It's also wire fraud because money is moving through an account in the child's name. And it's potentially child exploitation if the mother-in-law is profiting from a business operating under your daughter's name without parental consent. We need to file a police report immediately." I filed the police report that evening. I brought all documentation to the Richmond Police Department. I explained how an LLC had been registered in my daughter's name without my knowledge or permission, how funds were moving through accounts in her name, and how my mother-in-law was the authorized signatory on the account. The detective assigned to my case, Detective James Morrison, took the matter extremely seriously. "This is one of the clearest cases of identity theft involving a minor that I've seen," he told me. "The fact that she registered the business in Delaware but is operating it out of Virginia, moved money between states, and did so without any parental consent, that makes this federal, not just state. We're looking at potential wire fraud charges." Over the next 2 weeks, Detective Morrison subpoenaed bank records from the LLC account. He documented that Susan Hartley had deposited $4,800 into an account bearing my daughter's name and social security number. The deposits came from her MLM upline and from people she'd recruited into the scheme. He also discovered that Susan had created a business plan document that identified Sophia as the business owner and outlined how the company would eventually pay Sophia dividends when she turned 18. The document was a fiction. It was a scheme to make it appear as though Susan was operating legitimately when in reality she was creating a fraudulent business entity in a child's name for her own financial benefit. "Why would she do this?" I asked Margaret during one of our consultations. "Several reasons," Margaret explained. "First, in an MLM context, you need to show business activity to prove you're not just buying product for personal use. If the business is registered to someone else, particularly someone who can't legally object, like a minor, she can claim it's a separate entity. Second, if law enforcement gets involved or if the MLM gets investigated, having the business in the child's name might insulate her from personal liability. But it's her name on the account as signatory." Exactly. Which is why she's going to be charged. And frankly, the fact that she was moving money in and out of an account in a child's name without parental consent is such an obvious crime that the prosecutor's office will likely press charges quickly. They did. 2 weeks after I filed the police report, Detective Morrison brought the case to the district attorney's office. The DA charged Susan Hartley with identity theft, wire fraud, and child exploitation. David was devastated. His mother had committed fraud using his daughter's name, and he had to face the reality that she'd ignored his explicit refusal to allow her to use Sophia's identity. She just did it anyway, he kept saying. After I told her no, she just went ahead and did it. His parents, meanwhile, tried every angle to make the charges disappear. They called David repeatedly. His mother sent letters claiming she meant well and was just trying to give Sophia opportunities. They offered to repay the money. But you can't repay your way out of identity theft and wire fraud. I took steps to protect Sophia legally. I filed a petition with the court to have the fraudulent LLC dissolved and all funds returned to her, which would go into a trust account until she was 18. I also placed a fraud alert on her social security number and credit report, which I could do because she was a minor victim of identity theft. The Delaware Secretary of State's office formally invalidated the LLC registration after I provided them with proof that parental consent had never been obtained. The funds sitting in the account, $4,800, were seized as evidence and eventually returned to Sophia's trust account once the case concluded. Susan Hartley went to trial in federal court. The trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. The fraudulent registration, the bank records, the signed account documents with her name as signatory, the MLM documentation showing she was the one recruiting people into the scheme and moving the money. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and returned a guilty verdict on all counts. Susan was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison for identity theft and wire fraud. She was also ordered to pay restitution to Sophia in the amount of $5,000, ostensibly for the fraud committed against her. Sophia asked me one day after Susan was arrested if her grandmother was in trouble. "Yes, sweetheart," I told her. "She did something very wrong. She took your name and used it without asking Mom and Dad. That's against the law. Will she come back?" Sophia asked in the way 8-year-olds do. Direct, practical, concerned. "Eventually, but for a while she'll need to stay in a special place where people go when they break the law." Sophia nodded, and I could see her processing this in the way children do, understanding that there are consequences for hurting people, even when those people are family. What I learned from this experience is that family betrayal comes in many forms. Sometimes it's dramatic. Wills being forged, businesses being stolen. Sometimes it's insidious. Someone slowly grinding away at your trust until they feel entitled to cross lines that should never be crossed. My mother-in-law crossed a line so egregious that it required federal intervention. She used my daughter's identity. She created a fraudulent business. She moved money in my child's name without consent. And when confronted, she acted as though she'd done nothing wrong. David's relationship with his parents has never recovered. His mother is currently serving her sentence. His father, who'd been bailing out her poor financial decisions her entire life, finally recognized that some problems can't be solved with money. And Sophia? Sophia is a 9-year-old who learned far too early that family doesn't always mean safety. But she's also a 9-year-old who saw her mother stand firm, who watched the legal system protect her, and who learned that there are consequences when people commit crimes, even family members. My name is Jessica Hartley. I'm a mother, a teacher, and someone who learned that protecting your child sometimes means protecting them from family. When my mother-in-law registered my daughter's name as an LLC, she thought she was being clever. She thought a child's name would be easy to exploit. She was wrong. I called the Secretary of State. I filed a police report. I pressed charges. And I made sure everyone understood. My daughter's name, her identity, her future. These are not tools for my in-laws to exploit. And when they tried, I took them to court.